really, if we didn't get those policies right, if we didn't get the technology right, and if we didn't get the market conditions right at that time, it would not have taken off like it did. But look at the consequences. It has changed geopolitics for generations.
Energy Insights is our program brought to you by the Southeastern Ohio Oil and Gas Association. Comes on our network of 5 stations every Saturday morning. And the Honorable Mark Menezes is our guest, former Deputy Secretary of Energy. And talk a little bit about you getting into the industry. You don't wake up someday as a young kid and say, this is what I'm going to do someday, right? And I know you've got that LSU background. I don't want to think about 2007 or anything like that, what happened on the football field.
I didn't bring that up.
Talk about how you get into this business.
Well, it helps being from Louisiana because it is an oil and gas producing state. And you just spend any time there and you realize if you're not in the oil business or the petrochemical business, I mean, really it's those businesses that really elevated Louisiana from really endemic poverty. For years, on my mother's side, I'm part Cajun, right? So, right. I mean, we came down here. So the oil and gas boom was really quite an economic uplift, and it lifted all boats, and it really was remarkable to see it. In fact, I'm also partial to it because my father died when I was before I started school, and my uncle, who was working at Halliburton, asked me, well, would you like a summer job? I was about to begin college, and so I paid for my undergraduate school by working at Halliburton. So I got to go offshore. I got to work in the skid units and on the cement pumps, and you gain a fundamental understanding, of that. And then it also helped much later in life when your local congressman, you talked about Bill Johnson, of course, being chairman.
Sure.
Well, I had a similar situation where it was our local congressman who was chairman of Energy and Commerce Committee, Billy Tozan from Louisiana, and asked me to go and be the chief counsel when we were trying to pass comprehensive energy legislation back then. And so I was able to work with Chairman Tozan, and then later Chairman Barton, who passed these comprehensive energy bills back in 2005 when I was there. So, and in the meantime, I was able to work in the industry. So it's just been a really great experience being in the energy field.
So we move into that high. It's a cool. I mean, you got a nice be able to write that on your resume. It's pretty cool. But were you appointed, or how did? So 2017 to 2021, if I'm not mistaken. Then you were the Deputy Secretary.
Well, I'll tell you how that happened. I mean, really, President Trump asked Rick Perry to be the Energy Secretary. He wanted Rick Perry to do for the country what he did in Texas, and that is increase the economy through energy projects. And that's what Rick Perry did. And he said, yes, Mr. President, I can do that. And Rick Perry wanted Dan Bruyette, whom he knew at USAA and elsewhere, but Dan Bruyette, to be his deputy. And Dan had been at the Department of Energy during Bush 2 years. Okay, so he knew Governor Perry, did not have any experience with a federal bureaucracy. Okay, I mean, he wrote books on the 10th Amendment, but he knew that his friend Dan Bruyette did. And so President Trump and Rick Perry asked Dan Bruyette. And it turned out that's the connection with me because we worked together back on the Hill together when he was staff director, I was chief counsel, and he said, well, I'd like to see if we can get Mark to come. And I was with Berkshire Hathaway at the time, we were doing deals with Warren Buffett's company. It was really a great thing. But as you can see in my career, I've gone in and out of public service, and when you're asked to come in, and work, it's very difficult to say no. And I was genuinely enthusiastic, about trying to see if I could make a difference.
All right, well, you're very gracious in giving me your time. My final question is a big one, but I'm sure you can handle it. It's when you were, so for that very volatile time on the Hill, right, when you were in this position. So what kept you awake then? I mean, I know that could be a big answer. And then now, on the back end of it, what keeps you awake?
Well, so when we were up there on the Hill, you're talking about it on the Hill?
Absolutely.
When we were up there. So we had several issues that we were dealing with, okay? And we were dealing with the possibility that our natural gas resources were really drying up. We were building LNG facilities for export. And so we put in there streamlined permitting, but we also made it available for export as well as import, because those facilities can go either way. But
Right.
really we were focused on import, okay? Because we didn't know. This was before the shale. Well, in that bill, we also did a couple of other things. We exempted fracking from the Safe Drinking Water Act that kept EPA from regulating it, because there had been a federal court decision saying that EPA has authority to regulate fracking under the Safe Drinking Water Act. And Congress said, no, you don't, except if you're using diesel as an extractant fluid, okay? So that was the first thing we did. And then came along multi-directional drilling technology and buffering technology, the fracking technology, which happened to have been developed at the Department of Energy years before.
Sure.
And it kept developing that. And so those were the things that we were really concerned about. And the permitting, back then, we were very much concerned that we could not get things permitted. And that continues the problem today. It frankly keeps me up to date. And at the department, when we were there, we were able to see the benefits of those decisions that, frankly, Deputy Secretary Bruyette, then Secretary Bruyette, and I had in a very real way on Congress, and we saw it come to fruition. And so we really felt that what we had done really in the public service area ultimately made a big difference. And that's why I like to come out here and talk about the shale revolution,
Sure.
because really it's something that really, if we didn't get those policies right, if we didn't get the technology right, and if we didn't get the market conditions right at that time, it would not have taken off like it did. But look at the consequences. It has changed geopolitics for generations. Generations.
A tribute to the oil and gas industry. We're glad you came to. I know it was a long way to get here to
did
end
it,
up
though.
at Texas. You made it
In one day.
Yeah, former Deputy Secretary of Energy, the Honorable Mark Menezes, our guest, our program, Energy Insights, brought to you by the Southeastern Ohio Oil and Gas Association.